Tariq Road had a bar. There was a bar.
I can't even imagine
Tariq
that.
Road,
There was an actual bar.
There was an actual bar in Tariq Road.
Download the app,
Yeah.
pay the subscription, get a song library, start sampling, and they become a producer of music and they can put out content.
Yeah.
Do you count that as music? Because it's not original content.
Yeah, look, you're asking the wrong guy, I'll be honest.
No, I'm asking the right guy.
I know, but I don't. And when you said that it was a great city, it was actually in the early 60s. Some called it the Paris of the subcontinent. Some said New York of the subcontinent.
Paris or New York?
Or New York of the subcontinent.
Right.
The cinema industry in the 50s and 60s was massive. And they made some superb movies.
Really?
Oh, brilliant movies.
I can't even imagine.
Oh, they were brilliant. I mean, some of the movies ran for the longest time, like Zarka, I remember.
From 47 to 77, Karachi spent only 30 years being that city. But it has
30.
spent
That's right.
46 years being this city.
Wow, yeah, I couldn't have calculated that quick because you didn't use a calculator. That was pretty good. That's right.
That means that this Karachi is the Karachi that it should be, not that Karachi
No.
Hello and welcome everyone to Digitales. My name is Faizan Sayed, founder and CEO of East River, and today I have the longest running, or one of the longest running, RJs on radio, who's been doing this show by the name of Retro 89 for the longest time. He's also done a show in the past for 14 years called Kickoff. It was a sports show. He is the guy who is going to talk about Karachi from its glory days. Aamer Naseer, how are you?
Very well. It's great to be on this side.
Thank you for having me on your show a few weeks ago.
I think really it was great fun, and I need to do part 2 and part 3 because there's so much of you that one needs to learn more about. I mean, you're a man with many talents.
But today we're here to learn about you and your experiences, and I really sort of picked up on it when we were talking about when you were fondly remembering Karachi from its heyday. Right? And I believe Karachi, to me, is one of the best cities in the world. This city has something for everyone. Everyone. You want religion, you want sports, you want to race cars, you want to go to the beach, you want to go gliding, power gliding, you want to go into the desert, camping. Jo karna hai is shahar mein, you can do all of it, right? But the city has lost its luster. It's lost its way along the way. And I wanted to hear from you. You grew up in this city. What was Karachi like in the 60s and the 70s?
Well, I didn't grow up here. I would come here every year.
You traveled a lot, exactly.
Well, we were out in Europe for the longest time because my dad was posted there in PIA.
Right.
So we were in France for the longest time. But I would come here every year. And what my dad did is that every year in France, and you had to go with the school for skiing or whatever for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So my father made sure that every year we'd come here for about 30 days, so that we'd stay in touch with.
And how old were you then?
I was a young kid, 12 years old, probably.
Okay,
12,
so very
30,
young.
Very, very young.
Right.
And so I would come here every year to Karachi, and so I remember Karachi back then of the late 60s and early 70s, and when you said that it was a great city, it was actually in the early 60s. I was very young by then, some called it the Paris of the subcontinent. Some said New York of the subcontinent.
Right.
That's the kind of city. There was something for everybody out there. There was
Paris or New York.
Or New York of the subcontinent.
Right.
And there was something for everybody. There was cinema. There was lots of sports. We had some great sportsmen, of course.
Right.
60s, 70s, from boxing, football, cricket, squash.
Right.
And you saw a lot more sporting activities on the streets, more parks, cricket grounds, which unfortunately you don't see. So and lots of cinema halls.
Yeah,
and
cinema you mentioned was big back then.
Cinema was huge. You had cinema halls there. And surprising thing is that they built cinema halls in just about every area in Karachi. from Malir to Nazmabad to
And at different price
Nursery.
points.
Absolutely, except Defence and Clifton. They didn't have. They never made cinema halls in those areas,
Right.
and which I found very, very strange.
In fact, the first one is probably the one that was built recently in Phase 8. A few
I
years
think
ago.
the first one was near Seaview. I think,
Right, that was the
I think
first, you're
that
right.
was the first one that was
Right.
built, which I really find very, very. But my love for cinema grew from Europe, from staying in France and French cinema. And
Right.
So I would come here and of course.
But we didn't have French type films here. We had Pashto and Saraiki films.
You had Pashto. Pakistani cinema was huge. You've got to remember, Pakistani cinema industry in the 50s and 60s was massive, and they made some superb movies.
Really?
Oh, brilliant movies.
I can't even imagine.
Oh, they were brilliant. I mean, some of the movies ran for the longest time. Like Zarka, I remember. Zarka ran in, I think it was Nishat,
Right.
for the longest time. And forget the cinema, it's just those posters. I mean, my fascination as a young kid with those posters.
With the big mustache. All I remember is big mustaches.
They were there. Let's not get into the Pashto ones. It's a PG-13 show, isn't this, right? And I was fascinated by those posters because unlike today's posters with the digital and Photoshop and everything, it was all hand-painted. And it was incredible. So Karachi was...
Every poster was painted inside the cinema hall?
Outside. Outside they were made. And
because there was no printing press concept of any of that.
Nothing like that. So when I say cinema, Karachi had... It was free. You could go to... there's a cinema called Rio Cinema. And Rio Cinema generally showed if you were under 18, you couldn't get into those movies.
Really?
Yeah, there was a movie called Blow Hot, Blow Cold, which was with Giuliano Gemma, who was a big spaghetti western star. And I mentioned spaghetti western because we used to get a lot of spaghetti westerns in Karachi those days because they were cheaper to get, unlike the Hollywood ones.
So we'd have English films playing here.
Of course, English ones, and they weren't censored. So I remember
they weren't censored.
They generally weren't censored. I mean, they weren't show the explicit ones, but they weren't really censored. And which is why there was a movie called McKenna's Gold. So there's a famous scene where Julie Andrews and she's swimming and they didn't cut that one. But
in Karachi.
In Karachi. And that ran in Capri. I still remember that ran in Capri for the longest time. So Rio would show these kind of movies and there was the crowd different? Discipline. The crowd was, if you sat down, it was different crowd because you paid less money.
Right.
But if you were up, you had generally families and single girls would go there. There was no issue at all. But Rio would generally show all these adult movies and it's set for adults only. But what I'm trying to tell you back then is that if it was under 18 not allowed, you could do whatever, he wouldn't let you in.
They were very strict.
They would be tight. So I remember there was a movie called Blow Hot, Blow Cold with Giuliano Gemma and B.B. Anderson, if I'm not mistaken. I think I'm quite that sure with B.B. Anderson. I desperately wanted to see it because of B.B. Anderson. And nope, they didn't. They said, no, if you're under 18, you can. So that was Karachi. Tariq Road had a bar. There was a bar.
I can't even imagine that.
Road.
There was an actual bar in
There was an actual bar in Tariq Road. And there were lots of clubs. There were lots of...
So you could just walk into the bar in Tariq Road?
You could just walk in. And of course, if you had a little more money and you were going to spend, you had, of course, the Nasreen Room, which was in the then Intercontinental, where
was that located?
Intercontinental PC.
Oh, this PC.
Intercontinental had Nasreen Room. So, but if you were trying to impress somebody and had a little more money,
so it's like a proper, like going to Dubai.
That was absolutely. You go to Nasreen Room and you generally had some band or the other playing. I mean, of course.
What floor was it on? In the
ground floor.
On the ground floor.
Yeah, Nasreen was
where Marco Polo is now, or
where Taipan is right now.
Okay, where Taipan is. Yes,
Taipan is right now, and the one in Marriott had was it which one was it? I keep forgetting. Which now is Susie Wong.
Right, they're all the way in the back.
Yeah, everything's Chinese. Yeah. So they were.
So these are actually like a lounge bars?
No,
I mean, they were just normal bars.
There was a bartender mixing it up and you could order whatever.
And this is what?
generally-
This is late 60s, early. Well,
No,
obviously
this is all pre 77. We all know what
right.
happened
Right.
post 77. This was all 77. So I was really young, but somehow I managed to get into, because most of my friends were much older.
Right.
So they were, let's say if I was a teenager, they were
Right.
22, 23 and
So
everything.
you'd sneak in with them.
Yeah, right. And generally, most of these places, like if you go to the Beach Luxury, which had 007,
Right.
chose a name like
Right.
007, they all had bands, because you've got to understand that Karachi had probably the largest Goan community. And the Goans, one of the things that they absolutely love is music.
Why is that? From
The Goans just generally happy-go-lucky, like music, they like singing, so you had a lot of Goan bands and a lot of from the Christian community who were here. And sadly, post 1977, I think about 70-80% just migrated to Canada and Australia. But there was fantastic bands. They'd be singing popular numbers, English, Cliff Richard, Shadows.
Wow.
So it was
a completely different city.
it was
from,
completely different.
But you know what? I was just doing the math. You said 77 when it all changed, right? That means
post 77.
post 77. So that means from 47 to 77, Karachi spent only 30 years being that city.
Karachi spent.
But it has
30.
spent
That's right.
46 years being this city.
Wow, yeah, I couldn't have calculated that quick because you didn't use a calculator. That was pretty good. That's right.
So that means that this Karachi is then the Karachi that it should be, not that Karachi
No. So, but like I said, it was just freedom,
What was it like being, let's say, in your teens, growing up in an environment like that in this country? I can't even.
It was a different world.
I mean, my kids don't even leave the house unless I'm standing next to them.
I tell my kids and they argue with me. They say, no, that's not true. And I say, yeah, it is. I mean, you had everybody owned a Volkswagen. Like there was a movie called Bullet. I don't know if you remember.
We talked
and
about
I spoke
that.
about it. So there's that scene where Steve McQueen and everybody watching the movie in Palace Cinema Hall. I think that's where it played. Everybody got out and drove their Volkswagens exactly. Ford
like
Mustangs.
the Chargers and the Mustang.
Yeah. So it was just a great city. It was probably.
Were you here when that transition was happening?
By then, yes, we'd moved back. By then, we'd moved back from Europe.
When that transition started to happen, how did it feel for someone who had grown up experiencing the culture that the city had to offer, and then suddenly you see this transition out into a more conservative mindset? I mean, how does that?
Well, it took a while. I mean, post 77, it was, till the 80s. Actually, it wasn't so bad. Till the early 80s, when I'm talking about when I mentioned nightlife and all,
right.
Because in the 80s you also had a popular discotheque called Juliana's.
Okay.
I don't know if you know about that.
No.
That was in Marriott, and that was really popular.
In Marriott.
Oh, that was a really for the ones who grew up in the 80s or who were in their 20s in the 80s. Juliana's was the place, and there are 3-4 others. So it was still.
And it was like open to the public.
It was open to the public.
Anyone can walk in, pay money, and
yes, Juliana's was open to the public, but they were a little, of course, selective about the crowd that was.
That's
walking.
everywhere, right?
But great music, great ambience. It was so Juliana's was, I reckon, till 84. I think till about.
And then
84.
these places one by one started shutting down. They were shut down.
Then they started shutting down because by post 77, with prohibition, and when I spoke about the bands and the Goan and the Christian community, where they were playing in all these hotels, and so the migration started post prohibition because obviously with the clubs not being able to sort of serve and
so the Goans migrated back.
No, they grew up here.
They grew up here.
Yeah. The Goan community.
So when you said the migration started,
migration, what I meant is leaving the country because.
Oh, okay, right.
Because especially for the musicians,
right.
I mean, you've got to understand that with post 77, you're a minority and a musician. didn't really sort of,
So pre-77, there's a thriving music scene. They
it was
they have gigs everywhere,
Oh, it was incredible.
and they're a minority, and it's fine because they're in demand.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the Goan community, we don't really talk a lot about this, but they probably took the biggest hit in all of this.
They did. Well, and plus, it was work for them. I mean, somebody was telling me that when in the 60s, when the bands were playing in these hotels, so these guys would be performing 6 days a week. And at that time, they'd be paid between 800 to 1,000 rupees per month for performing 6. And so anyway, coming back to...
And that was a pretty reasonable, I mean, that's not bad money for its time.
For that time, it wasn't too bad. I would imagine it was 67, 68.
Yeah.
So...
that's decent.
So it was...
and now you don't have gigs.
And now, at that time, I'll tell you what was really very popular were jam sessions. Jam sessions were really huge.
Really? Like what kind?
Well, in clubs, you could do it at your house.
Yeah.
A lot of powder on the dance floor,
Right,
and
right.
you'd tell your sister to bring her friends.
Right.
You'd have 4 or 5 friends.
Wow.
And then there'd be if equal amount of. Generally, there was always more guys.
Right.
So
It's a fair point.
Yeah, you tell either your sister or your cousins, and
Right.
can you get more girls, and so make the ratio a little better. But yeah, jam sessions were really popular.
Interesting.
Yeah, and have horrible music like Boney M or whatever.
That's not that bad.
Terrible music. I get those requests on my show sometimes. And
I grew up with some tracks of this.
Boney M.
Yeah.
But we've all been guilty of listening to
it was
some
a guilty
really
pleasure.
Rubbish music.
I secretly still sometimes have them.
Yeah, stuff that like Eurovision. Eurovision was big in the 70s. Those European bands. Terrible music, but we heard it. But I'm never going to admit that.
Right. Yeah. And so these bands that you talk about, so obviously you had the big nightlife here. You had the clubs. You had bars. Did bands come and play in Karachi?
You had bands coming here all the time.
Because I can't think of a band.
Bands. I mean, cabarets, bands,
performers of all kinds were coming into Karachi and performing.
Yeah, can. I mean, it was from the Philippines, from all over. They'd be over, and forget about bands. You had lots of foreign teams coming here for sports, and when I was talking about sports, football, and everything, you had.
Cricket must have been big at that time.
Cricket was huge. I mean, because like I said, obviously you had more playgrounds, you had more sort of, and there was a lot of you'd push kids in school to make sure that they played cricket. Plus, like I said, things were different.
And you played cricket too.
I did. I played. Well,
you played professionally.
No, not cricket, but I was in the Sindh athletics team. I used to run the 400 meters.
Okay.
And I used to, play a lot of football. A lot of football. I'll play a lot of football. So at one time, in fact, in Paris, when my father was there, I didn't want to come back because I wanted to play so I used to play for the Paris Junior Club at that time. And so football has been a huge passion, hence the sports show.
Right.
And then, of course, I hosted a sports show on TV also for 3-4 years.
Okay.
Talking about football.
So sports has always been a passion. Music has always been a passion. Cinema has been a passion.
Cinema has always been. But like I said, again, because growing up in France in the 70s, you've got to understand that. And I'm very... Retro is primarily 70s. And I talk about 70s cinema because I think for me, that was personally the best era for cinema. They made those gritty kind of movies. I think most of the bands that came out late 60s, 70s.
So they had figured out how to use the tools from, let's say, the 1920s onwards.
Yeah.
They started pushing the envelope before things started getting watered down because of laws and regulation and, screen censorship and whatever.
Sure.
But what I want to understand is that up until the 70s, Karachi sounds like an amazing city.
It was.
Like I can't even imagine what that city must have been like. And I'm a fan of Karachi today. So
am I.
Right? And so the challenge is that if you are a fan of cinema, music, arts, let's say, right? Sports, how can you operate in this city today? Because it is almost impossible for the average person to get access to good sporting centers, to good athletic centers. To cinema is very limited. You barely have any films being made. Music, how many concerts are we really having? Locally, domestically, of domestic talent, forget the international talent. So this city is starved of entertainment. And so how can someone who thrives on that survive in the city?
I agree with you to a certain point, but then, when I see the younger lot today, I see a lot of young kids who are coming back from the USA with cinema degrees. They're getting into cinema. They're making movies. So I used to be also a jury member for Best Pakistani Cinema with when Lux used to do it. So, and why I'm mentioning this is because there was a year where a movie called Shah came out about the boxer.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
And
and that was a good film.
It was a brilliant film, shoestring budget, but
Yeah,
brilliant.
shoestring budget.
Excellent, made on Hussain Shah, which is a sad story. I mean, he was a great boxer.
Right.
He was the only boxer in the Olympic for Pakistan who got a bronze medal, and but he had to leave the country. He had to go to Japan,
right?
Because never did much for boxing. But at the same time, then you also have Coke Studio. You have you see a lot of talent. You see a lot of these younger kids and all coming out.
So we're dependent on private enterprise to help.
We're totally dependent.
Because, I mean, fine, you're right. Coke Studio did start the Pepsi Battle of the Bands and the Nescafe Basement. There was Sound Station someone had. There's one more, I think, the Mehran. I forget what it was.
So, and I think parents from those days are accepting when kids want to follow their passion. They will. I mean, you couldn't imagine parents being supportive 30 years back, and today, you've got these kids saying that, look, this is what I want to do. This is my
because they can see that you can make a livelihood out of it,
and there's good money.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it's good and bad.
And so you kept that passion of yours alive, and you got into radio. And you've done this for a long time now. 18 years.
And I did that because, my dad, who passed away a couple of years back, and I saw him, and he had a full-time job. Like I said, he was in the airlines and he was posted abroad. But he had so many passions. I would see him. He was heavy into ghazals. He was into sher o shairi. He loved the cinema and everything. And he said that, we're all alive, sure, but the point is, are you living?
Right.
He said, did you dance? Did you sing? And he taught me that. He said, don't follow your passions, because life is not just about a paycheck.
Right.
And a big 500-yard or 1,000-yard house with a garden and a Japanese.
Yeah.
So that's not what it's all about. You need to have, and I said, yeah, sure. So people ask me, how do you manage to do this? I mean, you've had a corporate, I'm still working.
And your show's on a Sunday.
My show's on a Sunday.
The day off.
Well, that's how I de-stress, So once I put on those headphones, I'm in the studio and I get to talk about cinema and play the music that I love.
Right.
So like I said, you need to follow your passion. So I'm passionate about sports.
And you've kept this running for 18 years. What does it take to run a good radio show? And I keep telling you should take it on digital and turn it into...
I know. I need to. I do retro, so I have no idea how to do that. Retro means from that era. I mean, after 18 years, it's just... I don't know. It just comes naturally. I just go in. I mean...
Right.
And I don't really have a script. I mean, you've done a show with me.
Right.
So I just figure out what I need to. Sometimes I take requests.
Right.
But if they're really horrid ones, then I tell them I can't play. There's a reputation at stake. So that's...
what's the craziest thing you've seen on your radio show?
Well, like I said, this is a PG-13. No, I'm just joking. Well, I mean, you get all sorts of fans. So I used to take live calls at one time,
right?
Which I don't anymore. All sorts. You get, some people get really hooked on. So I guess mine is, because it's retro, it's primarily lots of 60s and 70s. So I've got a particular segment. But from the messages I get, I see a lot of younger lot also now listening to, because I think they're also now listening to a lot of Rolling Stones and
Right.
and Bob Dylan and which is stuff that I play.
So what's your take? And I'm glad you brought this up. So music, you're big in music. Music, I'd say in the 60s and 70s was about creating original content, right?
Sure.
So the melody, the sound, the lyrics, all was original creation. Today, with digital having taken over everything and technology having taken over everything, it's all about the sample.
It is.
Right? And so it's all about me taking a song from the 70s, taking a sample from that track, and then either speeding it up, slowing it down, attaching it to a sample of another track, and boom.
Like Getting Jiggy With It is actually a chic song.
Exactly.
Which is Good Times. And
so there's all sorts of music. And in fact, now I think everything. In fact, now I've started following an Instagram page that shows new music and where it's originally been sampled from.
Oh, you'll be surprised. Like, you literally find 60% of the songs that
that's
you
exactly what's happening, and it's blown my mind. All of the newer songs, and sampling's been happening for a while, but with technology having become so easy to access, so cheap,
sure,
everyone can download the app, pay the subscription, get a song library, start sampling, and they become a producer of music, and they can put out content. How do you count that as music? Because it's not original content.
Yeah, look, you're asking the wrong guy, I'll be honest.
No, I'm asking the right guy.
I know, but I don't.
You don't consider it music?
No, not really.
Why not?
But just the fact that it's not original, it's not.
But it is original. So I took that sample.
Yeah, it is.
I sat and I used my brain.
I know.
I pressed some keys. I made a boom sound on a mic, and then I added another sample, and now I have a song, and it's a hit.
Yeah, but you're not going to convince me to say this because, I mean, I guess if I'd asked my son, he'd probably say yes. But
So you're a purist in that sense when it comes to music.
I think I am. Yeah,
so the entire creation has to be original.
Has to be original. Yeah. So, I mean, you got to understand. I mean, in retro.
So Misha Shafi singing "Boom Boom," that's not authentic, or that's not original.
No.
Even though she, I think, did a better version of that song in her take on Coke Studio.
No.
So then wait a second.
I enjoy a lot of things from Coke Studio.
But you don't consider them to be.
No, not really.
Wow.
Not really. Yeah. I'm probably old school,
Yeah, that's a real purist. Because Coke Studio, I think one of the things that they did well was that they introduced the older music to the younger generation. And the way they did that is through this sampling and the mashups and so on.
I think some of it, is very, very good. Yes, but generally, I don't know. I'm not too sure.
Right.
Yeah.
What about cinema? Would the same apply to cinema if I take old movies?
Again, I'm not. A lot of people were saying that they should make a remake of The Godfather for the younger lot to understand The Godfather for the ones who are in their 30s and the early 40s. But why would you touch a movie like The Godfather? I mean, The Godfather is one of those movies that is flawless. I've seen it maybe 300 times. I think.
Wow.
I mean, I know every scene. It's just flawless. Even the extras, you watch the extras, it's just perfect. The costumes, the Nino Rota, the music, Brando.
Right.
I mean, everybody. Pacino and these guys were new, relatively new.
They were, yeah.
And Coppola fought for Pacino to be in the movie, but just Dan Keaton was new. Nobody knew about them. James Caan had done a few movies, but it's just absolutely flawless. I mean, the scene where he's rehearsing the line that, the Godfather, on the auspicious day of your daughter's wedding. That guy, and he wasn't an actor.
Right.
Luca Brasi. It's just
was
flawless. And they want to make a remake. Why would you do that? So, there are lots of movies that they have made remakes.
The French Connection?
The French, no remake of that one.
The car chase, they didn't do the...
No. But French, they can't make a remake because that's based on a true story.
Right.
So I'm not too sure if they could do that. But well, maybe they can actually. I mean, true story's got nothing to do with it. But some movies, like Bullet,
You could do
where are you going to get Steve? Well, look, Steve McQueen
You'd
is...
get much faster Chargers and
I
Mustangs.
know, but you could. But then, Mr. Cool with an extra O is Steve McQueen. Where are you going to get somebody who's going to play Frank Bullitt
Right.
or Robert Vaughn or get Jackie Bissett?
Right.
So it's impossible to do that. And that movie hasn't aged. You're a car man.
Right.
You know more about cars.
I showed that to my 3-year-old son. The car chase.
You can't do that. I mean, there's no way movies today can't do those scenes.
They can't do those scenes.
I mean, they can't. I mean, I think
there's too many laws restricting them from doing a lot of what they did.
Yes. So probably from the newer ones was Ronin.
I think Ronin was the best from the 90s.
From the 90s.
Best car chase of the 90s.
Robert De Niro.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you had another great one where there was a scene with Stay Things, the burglars, with Jean-Paul Belmondo and Omar Sharif. So remakes... I can't really think of a...
So, but the concept of a remake would be to introduce the story or the takeaway message to an audience that may not appreciate the way it was done in the olden time, but would appreciate it done in their way. But the message would remain the same.
Sure.
So if you could take the Godfather's message, package it in the way, let's say, these influencers on Instagram package their things and deliver it to that audience? No?
I'm not too sure. You've got to understand that the time it was made, the 70s.
Right.
I mean, the whole story behind it. One was based on, they say, Frank Sinatra.
Right.
The fact that, the word mafia couldn't be used in the movie. That was one of the conditions that the mob had set with Mario Puzo. There's a great TV series based on the making of The Godfather. It's called The Offer.
Oh, I don't know.
So watch it. It's an 8-part thing. It's on the making. So, and for me, when I heard about it, it was just mouth-watering. I mean, I'm somebody playing Francis Ford Coppola, somebody playing Brando. So it's a great series. So see if you can watch. It's called The Offer.
Okay.
It's called The Makings, and it was all the challenges and the threats and. So yeah, but I think it's impossible. I mean, remake of Gone with the Wind.
Yeah.
They made Ben-Hur. Do
you think they could remake Charlie Chaplin movies?
No, out of the question. Out of the question. So yeah, so it's impossible to make those kind of movies.
And what about Pakistani cinema? You talked about Pakistani cinema
Pakistani cinema was incredible, 50s, 60s.
Do you think it'll ever go back there? What was it that it had that made it unique, and what did it lose over time?
Well, like I said, it wasn't as it was freer. You had those famous Kilab scenes, I say Kilab because that's what it was called. And
really?
Yeah, it was Aslam Parvez would normally be the Kilab manager.
Right.
It was called Kilab.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah, it was called the Kilab, and that's what it's the club scenes. And Aslam Parvez, who I think was the best villain ever in his black leather suit.
Right.
And he'd generally be the manager of that Kilab.
Right.
And you had either Sangeeta or Mumtaz doing the cabaret, and now you can't have those scenes anymore.
But do you think those scenes made those movies, and it was not the
those
script?
scenes which are today they're known as item number? I think that's what it's called. No, they just wouldn't. I mean, back then with the 60s, 70s, the music, the bell bottoms. There was one movie that was the first movie where you had, and she was the first black belt, a Pakistani woman black belt. Her name was Rakshanda Khatak. And she came in a movie called Jane Bond 008 Operation Karachi. Which is
I've never heard of that.
It's an incredible movie. It's called Jane Bond.
It's a Pakistani movie. Jane Bond.
Jane Bond.
And was it in Urdu or English?
No, Urdu. 008 Operation Karachi.
Oh, I have to watch this.
Just incredible. It's a work of art. Well, again, I'm also big on B cinema.
Right.
I love B cinema. Like really trashy. Bad acting.
Guilty pleasure.
So
this is like filled with bad acting.
Yeah. So it's one of those.
So why can't we go back to this? I mean, bad acting is all over Instagram. So
no, those movies, some of those movies like Operation the one I'm talking about, James
Right.
Bond, or there's a movie called Tiger Gang.
Okay.
Tiger Gang is with Tiger Gang was a German, Italian, Pakistani collaboration, by the way.
Wow.
It
On a
had,
film.
it had Muhammad Ali Zeba, Brad Dexter, Tony Kendall. So it was the Commissar X series, the Euro spy thing. So it's called
Okay.
Tiger Gang. Watch it. It's fun. So.
So is it because that cinema was freer and you could sort of take liberties with different scenes, or is it?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Was there a lot of serious cinema content back in the 60s?
Yes, I just mentioned Zarka. Zarka
Right.
was a and then
So
of
why
course-
not build along? Fine, we have the, let's say, restrictions of censorship and whatever now.
No, you made some great cinema recently also. So I thought the Pakistani Manto was brilliant.
Hmm.
You know, they made an Indian one too, but I thought the Pakistani was on that budget was fantastic. He did a great job. I think it's going to take
Cake
time.
was good. Cake was a good
Super
film.
movie.
Yeah.
Super movie. No, you have some great stuff, serials, dramas, and everything. I mean, it's not all that bad. But the 50s and 60s era that we have, it's called the golden age of Pakistani cinema. I mean, look at the actors that you had: Kamal, Nadeem. Nadeem, of course, made it big in a movie called Playboy. Playboy, which had some great keel-up scenes. You know, so
I have to watch these.
you have to watch these movies.
Yeah.
There's a particular channel which comes on which on our cable, and every time that channel goes off, I call the cable operator.
Right.
I said, "Look, you need to put that on because it has all the old Pakistani cinema."
I think you're the only one who calls him for that.
Yeah,
channel.
I'm the only guy. They know my name. They
He
say,
leaves it
"Aamer
on for
Naseer."
you.
Yeah, so they have all these great Pashto movies,
Right.
Badr Munir, and so yeah.
You think we'll ever go back to that? No.
No,
So that's gone.
no, that's gone. That's over. We'll never go back to.
What
that
about
era.
Molla Jat? You saw that.
Of course, I saw that, which is why I have so many friends who said that you're such a big cinema buff. How come you didn't see Mola Jat? You at least had to see it for. Look, I saw the original when it came out.
Yeah. And you didn't watch this one in the cinema?
I didn't, and a lot
You
of
didn't? Really?
I didn't see it. I just.
Just for the sound stage, I would watch it just for the audio.
Yeah, that's what I was told that
The
just-
audio,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
I was blown
yeah,
away.
yeah. I believe maybe I should.
The visuals were a little too much for me, but
yeah.
fantastic.
The last one I saw was Karma, which I thought was a great effort, and very Tarantino influenced.
Yes. Yep.
But I thought it was a great effort. Karma.
Coincidentally, we did the marketing for that.
Sorry?
We did the digital marketing for that.
Oh, really? No, I think it was really well made.
It was a good film.
It was a very good film.
Yeah, but it was not for mass audiences though. And actually, I'll tell you what the problem is. You raised it earlier on. Cinemas used to exist everywhere
Yeah.
at every price point.
Sure, right.
That is not the case today.
Sure.
And so if that's not the case today, for me to access that piece of content, I need to part with 1,500 rupees or 1,000 rupees.
That's
Not
right.
everyone can do that.
That's right.
Right.
That's
So suddenly you've restricted the type of audience that will
Right.
appreciate that
Right.
content.
That's right.
Karma is not for this audience.
No, it's not. No,
It is
it's
for the
not.
audience that can pay 100 rupees, 200 rupees, and
Yeah.
they'd get a kick out of it.
Yeah, and it'll do well in Netflix. And
It'll do well in
yeah,
Netflix,
yeah,
exactly. And
yeah,
so
sure.
the challenge we have, I think, it's not the fact that the movies are not there. It's the fact that the outlets are not there,
That's
and
right.
we need to create more outlets, and they don't have to be expensive and fancy.
No, they don't.
Everyone thinks that you need this
Sure.
big fancy setup. No, even the drive-in cinemas.
Sure, drive-in, of course.
I remember drive-in cinemas. I remember my parents took me to drive-in
really?
cinemas. Yes.
Are you serious?
Because, and this was on Rashid Minas Road that is
Right.
now flooded with
Probably
apartments.
saw that one, Beyond the Last Mountain. That was the.
Don't remember
one
what the film
movie
was, but
that-
it was the
yeah.
coolest concept.
Yeah,
Pull
yeah,
up in the car,
Yeah.
and then they'd put the speaker on,
Right, yeah,
and it was
yeah,
here in Karachi, and there was like 3 or 4 of them
Yeah.
on main Rashid Minas
Yeah,
between
main-
Nipa and
That's
Sharif
right.
Faisal.
That's right, boy. You remember that one?
Yeah.
Well, actually, you talk about some the movie Karma. There was another great movie that I saw. It was called Lal Kabutar.
Oh yes, I've heard of this one.
Oh, you haven't
Yes,
seen
I
it?
haven't seen it, but no,
Excellent.
I've heard it's gotten great
Excellent.
reviews.
And super soundtrack.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
Yeah. But I was glad that Kashan went and made Karma. I mean,
Right.
He wanted to. He spoke to me about it, and he said that he is making this movie, and I'm glad that he eventually did. And it was a great effort.
You think movies like these will help maybe or push some of these younger kids who are coming back from the US with the media degrees and the film degrees, like you said,
I hope
drive
so.
them to creating,
I
because
hope so.
it's not commercially viable.
No, it's not commercially viable. It's a lot of money. I mean, you saw the production in Karma. It was, I can imagine. So yeah, it's not easy.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. What about football? You think Pakistan would ever become big in football? They're starting a football league. What's your view on that?
These you've got Karachi United and the guys. I know the guys who are behind Karachi United when they started. Really passionate, done a great job. But our women's football team is actually doing better than the men's. Right now we are ranked 197th, if I'm not mistaken.
On men's?
On men's, I think, in FIFA, and the women just beat Tajikistan, and they did fairly well actually.
Okay.
No, I don't think we'll ever get to that era because we just don't put enough money in football. Well, look, it's a reflection of how things have gone down.
The state of affairs, yeah.
Anything. Look at squash. We had the two Jays, Jahangir and Jamshid.
Yeah.
Look what happened. We had hockey. Football was huge. You've got to understand that football in the 60s and 70s was huge because bigger than West Pakistan then was East Pakistan.
Right.
East Pakistan was massive in football. And you'd have Karachi versus Dhaka. And you'd have a lot of people, footballers from Pakistan going. In fact, Abdul Ghafoor, he was called the Pakistani Pele, by the way.
Really?
In the 60s, yeah. And he went to play for Dhaka Mohammedan.
Right.
So when the Dhaka Mohammedan played, Dhaka froze. It was that big. It was like a boxing, like when a heavyweight fight boxing took place, the world froze. When Ali fought, I mean, when we were growing up as kids and we'd come here, we thought Ali was Pakistani.
Right.
Because there was a public school holiday. There was a...
Right.
When
That's
the
true.
Kinshasa fight took place in Rumble in the Jungle, you went to school and his gates were closed. They said it's a holiday.
Wow.
Because Ali was fighting.
Right.
So our footballers would go to Dhaka. They were paid fat money. Some of them would play for these clubs and everything. I think Ali Nawaz was one of our footballers who went and played in England also.
Interesting.
And then you had departmental, you had PI, of course, you had a PI football team, you had departmental football going on. And that all finished. Huge in Liari. You go to Liari in the World Cup, it's like you've landed in Rio de Janeiro, in Brazil.
Right.
So they don't, unfortunately, have that anymore. So where are you going to produce? They don't have grounds. And you need good people to come in from the corporate sector, run these federations. And, maybe one day if I can give back.
But PSL has been viable. Couldn't a football federation be viable?
I mean, cricket is out here. That's the only game that's considered. Football, unfortunately, is the poor man's game. They never had that kind of glamour.
But it has a bigger global audience.
Of course it does. But in Pakistan, cricket's been the glamour.
Right.
With your...
Could it be replaced ever?
No.
You don't think so?
No. I mean, look at athletics. Look at Pakistan athletics, 50s, 60s. You have a lot of people. You had Abdul Razik, Razik, I'm saying, who was the fastest man in Asia. Ran 10.6 if I'm not mistaken. I think it was 10.61.
Yeah.
And was in the Rome Olympics. But
that was in the 60s, early 60s.
1960 was Rome Olympics when he ran.
Yeah.
But he won the Asian gold medal. I think it was Indonesia, if I'm not mistaken.
In fact, you're right, because I had the weightlifter who just came in fourth in the Olympics.
Yes.
What's his name? His name.
Yeah.
We had him on the show.
Oh, you did?
And I researched when I was doing that show is to see when was the last time we had an Olympic medal in Pakistan. And I noticed that the track record in the 50s and 60s was good. And then
50s, 60s was brilliant.
And then like the rest of the
50s,
country.
60s was great because you had a lot of athletics teams and you had people sending our athletes to the military games, the student games,
right.
Bonn, Germany, and they were trained out there.
Right.
And some of our heroes, we have absolutely no idea. So there was one from the Christian community, John Permel, who also ran the 100 meters. And he passed away. I can't remember when, but he was, I think, in his 70s.
Mm-hmm.
But an incredible runner. ran in Germany. One has probably never heard of him, but a super athlete. But again, just don't have enough tracks, don't have the right shoes, just don't put enough money in it.
Right, that's true.
I mean, now we've got our javelin throw won the Commonwealth. You've got Shajar who's running the 100 meters, but you need to pick them up when they're 8-9 years old.
And it doesn't cost that much. I was talking
it doesn't. I mean, football is, like I said.
I was talking to him, and he was talking about how he said, I need a sponsor, and that needs to pay for my meals, because my meals cost me 300,000 rupees a month.
That's right.
Because of the protein requirement and so on.
Right.
He said that when he was competing against the Indian, he said he didn't even have the right bar, that he was putting the weights on. The bar wasn't even measured correctly. Whereas the Indian competitor of his was practicing on the Olympic standard for the last 4 years.
Yeah. I don't think he had a manager also.
He didn't have a manager. It was his dad.
Yeah, it was his dad.
His dad was the manager. Yeah, that's true. And so that's the state of affairs for most sports. Well, look,
you've got a boxer called Mohammad Wasim who flies flyweight and bantamweight. And myself and my co-host Umar Ghaznavi had him on our show on Kickoff. And he was in the top 5 in the WBC, which is huge. But he had to quit fighting in between because he had a Cuban coach, but he couldn't afford him anymore. So the Cuban coach quit, and he was looking for sponsors. So we had him on our show, and we were literally pleading with anybody listening that, look, you need to help this guy. He's got a sponsor now,
right?
But Mohammad Wasim is, I think, 32 or 33 by now. But we just don't. We just don't put enough money
behind this. Because we don't see the sponsors don't see the value in it.
No, the sponsors don't see the value. There are corporations where people do it as part of the CSR.
Right. But that's completely different. I mean, no one's taking this on as a commercial enterprise.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, look, Coke revived music through Coke Studio because they took it on as a commercial sort of objective. And their objective was put Coke as the top of mind in awareness that consumers consume more of it.
That's right.
If there's a way to do that using sport, I think that could revive sport as well.
I mentioned Karachi United, but again, I'm not too sure whether they have for underprivileged kids coming in, because I think
you've got the Liari Football Club.
You've got the Liari Football Club, and I set up with my previous employers. I set up an football academy in Korangi.
Nice.
And that was for the underprivileged, and where we also paid for their schooling and football, got them a coach and everything. So there are companies that are doing that. But
so I think maybe the way it would, based on what you're saying, I think the solution would be to have commercial enterprise set up a football league, teams compete, the commercial enterprise funds the entire thing, buys the TV airtime, runs it, commits for the next 3 years.
Absolutely.
And then lets it go.
Absolutely. Like they're doing they're promoting in a big way MMA in Pakistan.
The way they're doing MMA. Exactly. It's completely
pushed Lahore, that way. It's huge.
And that is the right audience for it.
And they have the right audience for it. You've got a few female fighters who are really, really very, very good.
Right.
One of them, in fact, is the daughter of a very close friend of mine.
Okay.
Iman, and she's really good. I had her on my show.
Right. Interesting.
I said, brilliant. I mean,
MMA fighting in Pakistan.
MMA fighting in Pakistan.
And no football.
And no football. Yeah. So that's.
Amazing. Aamer, this was great. Thank you so much for taking the time. Really enjoyed the chat. It was such a diverse chat on various topics. But the takeaway is, it's the sad calculation that I just did, is that the Karachi of yesterday only lived for 30 years and the Karachi of today has been around for 46.
That's right. I still couldn't have calculated so fast. But thanks for having me, Faizan.
All right. Thank you. And thank you all for tuning in. Stay tuned for next episode next week and subscribe to our channel below. Bye-bye.